Hey folks, welcome to Shooting Up North. I'm your host, Louis Carlin. We're right here on the Alliance Pro Wrestling Network. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're watching for the first time, please consider hitting that subscribe button. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm on Twitter at Shooting Up North, Instagram at Alliance PW Network, and feel free to join our Facebook group, the Alliance Pro Wrestling Network. And if you're looking for an inexpensive way to support the podcast, you like the comment, you want to help support the podcast, consider purchasing a Super Thanks comment. They are a fun little comment that you can get. Each podcast that they put up, you'll see a little icon underneath the podcast. You'll see a thanks icon. Click on that icon. I think they start at $2. All money goes into supporting the podcast, towards the podcast. And you get a little fun animation. You get a colorful comment that you can leave. And you get a shout out from me on the very next pre recorded podcast, as well as a credit page at the end of that podcast, giving you thanks as well. So if you enjoy the content, you love the comment, you love the comment, you love the podcast, please consider purchasing a super thanks comment. Okay, so now this podcast, this Impact Wrestling news and notes, it's going to be a short one. The Impact Wrestling news and notes for August 28th, 2022. It's the Sunday AM version of it. I have a few things to talk about, but I will say right off the bat, this will contain spoilers. So if you don't like spoilers, maybe this podcast is not for you, but it does contain a spoiler because something happened and I want to talk about it during the tapings. So it does contain a spoiler. But before we get into that spoiler, let's talk about the Good Brothers. Let's talk about what's next for the Good Brothers. So as we know, last night, the Good Brothers this is a bit of a spoiler. This is a bit of a spoiler. The Good Brothers no longer the Impact Wrestling World Tag Team Champions. Matt Taven and Mike Bennett defeated them. But at last night's taping, the Good Brothers took on the Motor City Machine Guns, and that was the final scheduled appearance for now for Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson. They're going to be focusing mainly on New Japan Pro Wrestling. There was word that the WWE actually had some interest in them, but they opted not to sign with the WWE. Because it says WWE sources indicate that talks fizzled when Gallows and Anderson already having been burnt have already been burnt once when they signed to remain with the company instead of heading to AEW in 2019, found themselves released right after WrestleMania 37. The talks fizzled out. So WWE was a little interested, but talks have fizzled out, and the Good Brothers will be concentrating on New Japan Pro Wrestling. I know they're going to be, Carl Anderson is a never openweight champion. He'll be defending the belt, I'm sure, at Wrestle Kingdom. So I think they got a whole slate of matches scheduled. They're going to be on the New Japan Pro Wrestling schedule right through to through January to Wrestle Kingdom. So they're concentrating on New Japan Pro Wrestling right now, as I said. Will they be back in Impact Wrestling? We could see an appearance here, an appearance there. It's very likely, but as of right now, they're not under contract with Impact Wrestling anymore. They're free agents, and they're again focusing on New Japan Pro Wrestling. So, about the attendance numbers last night, actually, Impact Wrestling last night during the TV, last two nights, the TV tapings in Dallas. They drew in the area of about 500 people to the TV tapings. Saturday, I'm reading, drew stronger than Friday, but they were in the area of 500 people for each night, which is not too bad. It's not wonderful, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Also, there's been rave reviews from fans in attendance for two matches: Brian Myers versus Babinda Gujar. They had a ladder match, and Chris Bay, Ace Austin, Bullet Club versus Aussie Open, getting rave reviews as well. So those are two matches that we are gonna have to look forward to on Impact on Access TV. It's good to hear that Babinda Gujar and Brian Myers had a match that everyone's raving about. So it was a ladder match. I don't know who won. Looking forward to that on Impact on Access TV. And Bay and Ace Austin against Aussie Open. That sounds just fantastic as well. I know Aussie Open took on the Motor City Machine Guns the night before, so I'm sure that was a great match as well. So Aussie Open. I hope we see a lot more of them in Impact Wrestling. And there were a number of debuts actually in during the tapings. Now, again, this to contain spoilers. I did a spoiler podcast. If you saw the spoiler podcast, there's one name that I didn't have on there. But if you saw the spoiler podcast, and you don't want to know the new name, that the new talent that debuted, or you might already know. That's if you don't know who it is, maybe it's best that you turn the podcast off now. But debuting at this set of tapings was someone that I'm very happy about. Actually, New Japan Pro Wrestling star Yuya Omura made his Impact Wrestling debut. Um, Mascara Dorada made his debut as well, formerly Grand Metallic, also making his debut. Alex Zane returned to Impact Wrestling as well. He was there for both nights. But there was another debut. There was another debut. And I heard Yuya Omura versus Kenny King was the match. I heard that was a hard hitting, excellent match as well. So I'm looking forward to that. Yuya Omura, New Japan Pro Wrestling Young Lion, who's on excursion right now, just an absolutely tremendous talent. And if you listen to the podcast on a regular basis, you've heard me mention that name a number of times. So when I saw that he debuted, I was very, very happy. Very, very happy. And I hope we see a number of New Japan Pro Wrestling strong stars debuting, like Clark Connors, Ren Narita. I hope we see more of them debuting for Impact Wrestling in the future. But very excited about Yuya Uemura. Mascara Dorada also debuted, as I mentioned, also known as Grand Metallic in WWE. But there was another debut, And I did a podcast on this about 2 days ago. Yeah, and asking if this gentleman is getting ready to make his Impact Wrestling debut. And he did. He made his Impact Wrestling debut. I'm talking about former Ring of Honor star Shane Taylor, the baddest man of all time, the baddest of all time. Shane Taylor made his Impact Wrestling debut. And I got this message from a buddy of mine, Andrew C., who was at the show, and he was like, "Shane Taylor just debuted," and I popped. I got excited. I'm thinking, "Wow, Shane Taylor debuted." Did he sneak attack like a Sammy Callahan? Did he help Honor No More? Did he help um did he attack maybe Josh Alexander to set up maybe a feud down the road? Did he align himself with Eddie Edwards in his battle against Josh Alexander? Did he go after Rich Swann? Did he go after Moose? Did he bring Shane Taylor Promotions with him? Was it just Shane Taylor? So things were just running through my head. It's like, wow, this is Shane Taylor, great, great talent. Won him in Impact Wrestling for a while. I just fantastic talent, would be a great, great opponent for Josh Alexander and the Impact Wrestling world title. That's basically what I was saying on my last podcast. I tweeted that out a number of times as well. And then I found out that Shane Taylor was on BTI before the Impact. It was taped before and his opponent was Crazy Steve. I'm like, okay, so Crazy Steve. His opponent's Crazy Steve. Get the win over Crazy Steve. Kind of like an introduction. And but no, looks like Impact Wrestling out of the plans. Crazy Steve defeated Shane Taylor, and I was like, what the hell? What the hell? I mean, Shane Taylor is one of the hottest free agents out there. Shane Taylor is a terrific talent. Shane Taylor could come in and be a major star for Impact Wrestling, and you're going to debut him on BTI against Crazy Steve and have Crazy Steve go over on Shane Taylor? What the hell are they thinking? Unless this is just a one-off and we're not going to see Shane Taylor anymore, which which wouldn't make sense because Shane Taylor's not with Ring of Honor, he's not with AEW. He has great interest in Impact Wrestling. He not tweeted, he posted on Facebook that he's very excited about Impact Wrestling. He said he'll see everybody there, and Savannah Evans responded, and he's like, "I'm just trying to get a little spot. You're a big dog." I don't remember a word for it, but he said, "I'm trying to get a little spot in Impact Wrestling," and Savannah Evans says, "There's plenty of room for you here." So I wouldn't understand why this would just be a one-off, but to have Shane Taylor, to debut Shane Taylor that way, BTI, to have him lose to Crazy Steve, who loses to everybody. I can't remember when Crazy Steve won a match. I'm sure he's won a match, but that's how you're debuting Shane Taylor. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Unless thought popped in my head that maybe Scott D'Amore was testing him out to see how he would react to losing to Crazy Steve. But I mean, does Shane Taylor have an attitude problem? I don't know. I don't think so. But maybe he's like testing him. to see how he would react to a loss of Crazy. But that's not no, that's a really poor way to debut Shane Taylor, in my opinion. Shane Taylor could come out. Shane Taylor, the Shane Taylor should like, for example, like Rich Swann in the ring wins a match. Lights go out, lights go on. Shane Taylor's in the ring, and he just absolutely annihilates Rich Swann, setting up a Rich Swann Shane Taylor feud. You could do that for anybody, or you could have like a Trey Miguel. A Trey Miguel's not doing much right now, and have Shane Taylor, annihilate Trey Miguel. So something like that, or have him debut against someone that he's just going to run right over. He should have ran right over Crazy Steve, but Crazy Steve defeats Shane Taylor. I hope there are plans for Shane Taylor. I hope I hope this is not just the one-off thing and say, okay, he lost Crazy Steve, and don't think we're going to use him anymore. But they Impact Wrestling would be absolutely nuts if Shane Taylor had interest in Impact Wrestling and they didn't use Shane Taylor um, the way they should be using. The Shane Taylor is so talented. Like I said, he could be a top star for Impact Wrestling like that, like that. And to debut him, and I'm sorry for the spoilers, guy, but this kind of irritated me. But to debut him, having him lose Crazy Steve, I think that's a mistake. I think that's a mistake. I wouldn't have done that. But I would have done whatever I could to get Shane Taylor on the contract, and I would have him go right to the top, go right after like a Sammy Callahan, go after a Steve Macklin, go after a Violent by Design. I would have him, that's what I would have done. But I'm not in control. So, and again, I hope excuse me, I hope we see a lot more of Shane Taylor. I hope this was just like I hope it's just a dark match. And it never airs. I just want to get a look at Shane Taylor. I hope it's a dark match, but I heard it was taped for Deep BTI, so it's probably going to be on BTI. And I wouldn't show the match. I would scrap that match. I would cancel showing it, and I would bring Shane Taylor back, sign him to a 2-3 year deal, and debut him properly. That's what I would do. All right, so we're gonna leave it at that. This is an early version of Impact Wrestling News and Notes, August 28th, 2022. And no, we're not done actually. What am I talking about? There's one more thing. Sorry, there's one more thing. Gisele Shaw. I'm sorry, I forgot all about this. Gisele Shaw wants to team up with Mia Yim and challenge for the Impact Knockouts Tag Team Championship. It says Gisele Shaw has her sights on the Impact Knockouts World Tag Team Championship. She says, when asked, she specifically named Mia Yim as her ideal partner, giving her skill set and list of accolades. Gisele Shaw actually was talking to Ella J of SC Scoops, and she's when asked that question, she said, "That's a tough one, but I would have to say Mia Yim. I would definitely have to pick her. I think she's an incredible wrestler, and she's been an Impact for the longest time. Why not choose someone who has great accolades?" So Gisele Shaw would like to team with Mia Yim and go after the Impact Wrestling Knockouts Tag Team Championship. I think Shaw and Mia Yim would be a great tag team. I think they would give Perazzo and Green a great challenge, and we'll see if it becomes reality. But as of right now, Gisele Shaw would love to team up with Mia Yim, um, and challenge for those Impact Wrestling Knockouts Tag Team Championships. Okay, so that's it. That's it. So this is an early version, as I said, early version, Sunday morning Impact Wrestling news and notes for August 28th, 2022. Also, I have an interview up right now with All Japan Pro Wrestling star Cyrus the Destroyer. Check it out. It was a great interview. It's up on the channel now. Anything breaks, of course, I'll be back. But until then, thank you very much. Take care. Bye bye. Stay safe, everyone. So long. Bye bye.